So we've got new hairstyles and maternity flight suits.
Public shooting happens the left. Wow, these acts of mass violence make me with I was less capable of defending myself. Liberals posting on Twitter, how hard is it to be kind? Unite liberals. In my comments, I hope you and your children all die from COVID. Let's raise the minimum wage to 100 and are so nobody's poor. Hadden Grill, not Somalis. Somalilanders different country. Can anyone put me in touch with someone from Somaliland? No time wasters please. Remember that the Jolly Heretic is closed tonight due to the landlord's snowmobiling on Lake Inari, but it will be open, as usual, on Monday. The hallway looked like it was from the House of Mirrors, and it took Joe Biden a half hour to make it to the end of the hall. Something ain't right. Worst part was all that talk about being united. If Joe Biden actually cared about unity, he would have called of the impeachment and told big tech to stop censoring us. Joe, you seem like a pretend president. You don't even seem real. Wrap it up, Joe. How about Joe's extra cheesy sorry about that woman in Philadelphia asking for truth? Would Joe Biden make up a story like that? Did Biden mention Trump, the one who made the vaccine possible? I missed that part of the speech. Did he? Biden. Charles Love, one of the most thoughtful people in America on the subject of race. Ghoulish adjective, morbidly interested in death or disaster. She told the story with ghoulish relish. President Biden's plan is to rely on the work that has already been done by Operation Warp Speed. That's why only 9 of his relief bill went to defeating the virus. What America needs now is to fully reopen our economy and our classrooms. President Biden owes the nation answers on 3 questions tonight. 1. When can the economy fully reopen so people can get back to work? 2. Why aren't our children in school, as the science says it's safe? 3. Why are you letting immigrants with COVID enter our country illegally? Democrats want to make it harder for Americans to keep and bear arms in order to protect themselves and their families. Of course, they voted to limit your Second Amendment rights from behind the walls of a Capitol fortified with armed security forces. The American people deserve better than Biden and Pelosi's political payoff scheme. It causes $36 billion in cuts to Medicare. Only 9 of the $19 trillion goes to defeating the virus. 95 of the education funds won't be spent until 2022 or later. Last week I sent a letter to the president asking for a meeting on the border crisis. I haven't heard back. It's also been a record length of time since he's held a press conference, so the American people are waiting for answers too.
A year ago this week our country went into lockdown, but we went right to work. Over the past year, Congress has passed 5 relief bills to get Americans back on their feet. Each one of them was bipartisan. This week Congress passed the 6th. It is the single spending bill in history, and the only bipartisan vote was the vote against the bill. Not one Republican voted for it. What about the virus? You know, less than 9% is used to defeat the virus. It doesn't prioritize school openings. Most of the money for schools doesn't even go out till 2023. It pays people more to stay home than go back to work. It includes hundreds of billions in state bailouts, when, as the Wall Street Journal reported just last night, despite the pandemic's crushing toll on the U.S. economy, total state revenues were roughly flat in 2020 from the year before. This isn't a relief bill. It's pretty much a payoff for Pelosi's political allies, and it will be the American people paying the bill. And as Pelosi and Biden try to convince the nation otherwise, the same 3 real priorities remain. We need to reopen every school in America. Science knows it's safe, and parents want it to happen. We need to get to work, and the vaccine efforts created by Operation Warp Speed, which will administer vaccines seems to be beautiful. That's the way the country will store labor. That would allow the administration to do the right thing, while at the same time doing the other things that it's responsible for, such as securing our border. Many of you know, last week I sent President Biden asking for a meeting to talk about the crisis along the border. I still have not had a response, but even President Biden's own Secretary of State, Blinken, said yesterday, strong borders are fundamental to our nation's security. It's not just in America that knows it's a crisis outside of the White House, even the President of Mexico. He said that people coming to the border see Biden as the migrant president, the encouragement of making it happen. I couldn't agree more. That's why we must address this crisis at the border is spiraling out of control and is entirely caused by the actions of this administration. In February alone, there were more than 100,000 migrants encounters, a 7-year high and 173% increase from the same time last year. Let's put that in perspective. In 1 month, 100,000. Those are the ones we encountered, not the ones that got through that people did not see. What does that equate to? Joe Biden's hometown is Scranton, Pennsylvania. 100,000 is a higher population than Scranton in 1 month. Health and Human Services reported they are taking in 321 children a day, up from the weekly average of 203 just a few weeks ago. As I said, last week I sent a letter to talk about the crisis. Haven't heard back. The American people also haven't gotten an update since it's been 50 days since the president has held a press conference. So on Monday I'm going to the border. I'm taking 12 members with me. from the committees of jurisdiction, working on trying to find a solution caused by Biden's action just in a short time frame. And don't take my word for it, the other thing we've been doing prior to going to the border is talking to people down along the border. And Russell, who lives in New Mexico, doesn't allow his children to play outside on Super anymore because Biden left nearly a mile-long gap wall on his property. Just about one of the houses in his community has been broken into. Not only that, the cattle are getting sick from the stress of hundreds of people crossing by them every day. The cattle wander out through the broken fences to Mexico. Mexican cattle ranchers wander in sometime, bringing the diseases and destroying his livelihood. We spoke to the mayor of Uvalde, Mayor Don McLaughlin, who said the facilities down there are so packed, Border Patrol is left to just release migrants into the middle of the town. All day. Just a head-on crash during one of the pursuits. Because armed migrants are out. In January, multiple officers were shot at. That's just this community. And a member of the Texas Farm Bill told us an acquaintance on his southern Arizona was just forced to move off his ranch because his 6-year-old daughter was missing. They followed tracks south of the ranch until they found her sitting alone barefoot, miles away from their house after Border Patrol tracked down the group. One common theme here is this is not a political issue anymore. It's becoming a national security concern. That's why I sent a letter to work with the president on the crisis he created along the border. Just for a meeting. He hasn't even acknowledged the crisis he created, let alone set a time to meet to solve it. With that, let's open it up for questions. Yes, sir. We can always think Marjorie's going to do that. They kicked her off all committees. That's the only committee she has. Every member has a right to make the motion. People have disagreements on the strategy and what's best to use. But there's a frustration on the floor. Not just with Marjorie, not just with Republicans. I sat with a Democrat today to talk about policies, and she's very frustrated with the wall around the Capitol. You know, a lot of people say you're going to the border to look at the wall. No, I can look right outside my window. The frustration of taking away the minority's right for a motion to recommit. It's been more than 100 years. The idea that now we sit where members, do they even come up and show for work because of proxies? Committee staff and committee work, is it even produced? A schedule that's never kept to, that you think you're going to have a district work period, and the next day they say, no, we're taking that back. Bills that come to the floor that never have a say in your own committee, but affect your district. Yeah, there's frustration all around. So, did we expect it? Yeah, I expect others to do the same. Probably on the Democrat side as well. This is probably the poorest run Congress in the history of Congress. It's the least effective Congress in the history of Congress. The only one worse was the Congress before it. Yes, sir. So the COVID relief poll, 75% in those polls. I'm curious your thoughts on that, and what is your estimation? What quarter of the country missing? Well, I don't know that they've read the bill. I don't know if they know what's in it. I think when they find out that less than 9% of it goes to COVID, but in San Francisco that has a $650 million deficit, the city, 92% of their deficit will be taken care of. And they won't have to wait till 2023 like the schools have to get their money. They'll get their money now. So if you're part of the swamp, it's pretty positive. If you're a federal employee, you'll get $21,000. But if you're in the private sector, if your kids have been out of work, you're not going to get anything. If you're a state employee, they added it up. If you come in here illegally, you're going to have assistance when it comes to your health care. So I think as people read this, they're going to find out now. And I think if there's a correlation to it, I'd go back to, January 28, 2009? There were some same people at the White House that were in that administration that thought a stimulus bill was really going to turn the country around. It had about the exact same approval rating. A month later, it dropped 12 points. By the time November came around, more people thought Elvis was alive than the stimulus created a job. Why? Because they wrote the bill the exact same way. They rewarded their political friends instead of solving a problem. How do you call it a COVID bill in less than 9%? And you make it the single largest? Does it put, every time we've been able to do a bipartisan bill, what has changed? Administration. And now it's going to be singly one way. You know every time that happens, whatever piece of legislation is made probably has some problems in it. And the only bipartisan vote here was against it. Yes, sir. Sure. Mm-hmm. No, we just passed 5 bills, and you just laid it out from the very beginning. Look how strong the economy is right now when people didn't think it would be. So you know the PPP program we created? Pretty good program, was it not? Providing the ability to get these states, when people thought they were going to have a lot less revenue, we just found out they don't. So why would you change the revenue function of how you provide money to the states simply based upon whether they're blue or red? Well, you're partisan. Okay. You're asking a question, should we vote on things because we think they're politically positive, or should we vote on things that are good policy? I think good policy makes good politics. I think it's the exact same thing I saw in 2009 I'll see now. Yes? Look, I had a negotiation with Mr. Hoyer prior to us being sworn in, telling him, if you remove a motion to recommit, you're denying constituents across the country from having a voice. Something no Congress has ever done. We've never even thought of that when we were in the majority. You're taking away an ability for somebody to have one amendment on a bill. But there'd be problems in the future. These are procedural items that every member has a right to do. I think you kind of miscalculated what Chip Roy was actually doing. He wanted a roll call vote on one of the bills. I think people thought it was overall. If you followed that night, there was a UC to move one of those bills, the vets bills, through with no objection. So, yeah. Yes. Well, I hope they would put the policy or people before politics and actually look at it. Do they really want Iran back in exactly as they had it? I don't think the world is safe. I think what's happened in the last administration, the Middle East became more safe. Now with this new administration, in a short amount of time, our borders are unsafe. Iran is doing naval maneuvers with Moscow, sending missiles into Iraq. Our gasoline price goes up by the day. No one thought it'd be this much pain in such a short amount of time, but that's what happens when you have bad decisions. I'm hopeful that the Democrats would look and join with us and make America stronger and the world safer. Thank you all. Have a good weekend.
The situation at the southern border is a full-on crisis. It's a national security concern, and no American on our soil should be left to deal with it on their own.
Thank you all. As you see and we hear along the border, we see that Biden's policies created a border crisis. Because on his very first day of this administration, there wasn't a plan to open up American business or American schools. President Biden announced that it was his priority to offer citizenship for 11 million undocumented immigrants. What did he think would happen? Just last month alone, 100,000 migrants were encountered attempting to illegally cross our border. Put that in perspective, 100,000. That's a larger population than President Biden's hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania. The number of migrant children detained at the border had tripled in 2 weeks. They're in jail like cells. The number of migrants who have tested positive for coronavirus after being released by the Border Patrol in Texas has nearly doubled. As Republicans, we know how to solve this problem. We can work with administrations to make it happen. Last week, I sent a letter to the president, asking to sit down with him, to work on ideas, to reverse some of the misuse and misdirected policies that he had attempted at the beginning in creating this crisis. As of today, he still has not answered our letter to attempt to meet. Next week, we'll be traveling to the border myself with the 12 other members to see firsthand, to come back with solutions, to make sure our border is secure, and to make sure we can end this crisis that Biden has created. And with that, I want to introduce our Republican whip, Steve Scalise. Thank you, Kevin. We're very concerned about this crisis at the border that has been created specifically by Joe Biden's policies. President Biden's border crisis has got to get reversed. If you look at where we are right now, you have thousands of people crossing illegally into the United States every single day. Those border states are getting overrun. It's a drain on their resources. There's super spreader caravans coming across. And this was all done by President Biden, and President Biden can address and reverse this policy. And we're calling on President Biden to reverse his policy that's created this Biden border crisis. It's not very complicated. When you look at what President Trump had done, the Remain in Mexico policy was an example of a president working with our neighbor, in this case Mexico, to solve a problem that not only existed at America's border, but it's created a new problem at Mexico's southern border, because many of the people coming across in these caravans are coming through Central and South American countries through Mexico. And so the original policy to remain in Mexico while asylum cases, for example, would be worked out was a much more humane process, and in fact reduced what we're seeing right now. In these caravans, you have young women who are being exploited. The human trafficking is getting out of control, and the abuse of these women should be a major concern. Again, this is something that President Biden created, and he can fix this today by reversing the order. He's got to recognize the policy failed. Any good leader would look in the mirror, and if they made a mistake, they would acknowledge this is a mistake, and they would fix it, because he himself can fix this right now. First step, though, is to admit that there is a crisis. It seems like the White House right now is in denial about the crisis as it stands. President Biden himself won't even go to the border. He sent a group of people down. He wouldn't even meet with them for days because I think he wants to ignore this problem. The problem's getting worse. It's getting worse, and it's dramatically affecting other states. When you think about the fact that right now, President Biden is implementing policies that are keeping schools closed, yet he sent a message around South and Central America that our border is open. That's the wrong message. It's the wrong message for America, and it's doing a disservice to those people in those caravans who are being abused every single day. It's got to stop. President Biden created this problem. President Biden needs to fix this problem. But that'll bring up our conference chair, Liz Cheney.
Thanks very much, Whip, and thanks, Leader. We have to recognize that words have consequences and actions have consequences. When the Biden administration refuses to enforce our immigration laws, when they refuse to build a wall, when they pass legislation like the bill that we passed yesterday that includes money for illegal immigrants, this is what happens. What happens and what's going on right now at the border is foreseeable. It's a foreseeable consequence of their statements, of their policies. They caused this. They are responsible. And Speaker Pelosi is compounding the issue, and she is compounding the danger to the American people. Simultaneously, we are seeing the Biden administration open borders. We are seeing the Democrats in the House under Speaker Pelosi move to defund the police, move to infringe on the gun rights of law-abiding citizens. All of this combines to form a very dangerous and toxic mix. And when you are the President of the United States, when you are sitting in the White House, it's not enough to express concern about the challenge. It's not enough to ignore the challenge. It's an abdication of your responsibility if you ignore the challenge. So we're calling on the Biden administration to take action immediately to secure the border, to stop what we're seeing happen, to change the policies, to make clear that the hundreds of thousands of people that we've seen now attempting to enter the country illegally will not be able to do so. They need to reiterate and recommit to protecting and securing the nation and to protecting the American people. And with that, I will yield to the Republican leader of the Homeland Security Committee, Mr. Katko.
Thank you, everybody. What we are witnessing, of course, is Biden's border crisis. If you want to think of it another way, it's disorder at the border by executive order, to channel Dr. Seuss. Disorder at the border by executive order. I can say it 5 times fast. President Biden's knee-jerk reversal of productive and effective border security policies from the previous administration was a political calculation that has created a humanitarian, security, and public health crisis. Instead of being transparent with Congress and the American people about what is happening at the border, the administration is twisting itself into a pretzel to avoid saying the dreaded word, crisis. All we heard out of the White House yesterday was a refusal to take responsibility and yet to be revealed long-term objectives. That's not an answer to this crisis. We are a nation of laws, but instead of enforcing the law, here's what the administration has chosen to do. Halt border wall construction in its tracks. Re-implement the dreadful catch and release program policies allowing migrants to flow in the United States, raise up their hands, say the magic word asylum, and they're paroled in the United States. Once they know that's acceptable, they're going to be coming in droves, and we already see that with the facts. They've eliminated the critical Remain in Mexico policy, which is humane and is working. And it canceled the asylum cooperative agreements with our Central American partners. That's what they've done. What they haven't done is admit that it's caused a crisis. And the facts speak for themselves. Let me just give you a couple of facts. Last month, CBP encountered over 100,000 individuals seeking to cross the southwest border. That's a 28% increase in just 1 month, and 173% higher than the same time just 1 year ago. Another fact for you. CBP currently counters an average of more than 3,000 individuals a day. When Jay Johnson was Secretary of Homeland Security, he said 1,000 individuals coming across the border a day is, quote, a bad day, end quote. Another fact, hundreds of Border Patrol agents are being diverted from interior drug checkpoints in the northern coastal borders to Rio Grande Valley. The administration is even asking for people to volunteer to come to the border to help with the, I can't say the word, but it is, it's a crisis. International travel, you can't come from England by plane. If you fly from Mexico by plane, you first have to have a test to show you're COVID-free. Yet you can walk across the border and come right in. What is wrong with us? What are we doing, right? The high volume of the unaccompanied children encountered at the border continues to rise. Reports indicate CBP is projecting 13,000 unaccompanied children crossing the border per month by May. And Health and Human Services facilities are reaching capacity. So what are they doing? They're checking with NASA and the Department of Defense to find warehouses, but all these unaccompanied children are coming across the border because Biden put his come on in sign on the border. That is not right. All of this was predictable. These politically motivated policies have created a crisis that must be reversed. And I'll stop at what I said at the beginning. There's disorder at the border because of his executive order. And let me introduce next speaker, Kate Ranger.
I've been to the border many times as the head of the 2014 task force created to address the alarming number of unaccompanied children coming to the border. I've seen firsthand what a border crisis looks like. So believe me when I say we're once again facing a crisis on our southern border. Not only has the Biden administration repeatedly failed to recognize the crisis even exists, they've stopped construction of the border wall, virtually eliminated enforcement of immigration laws, and reversed Trump administration policies that were so successful in decreasing illegal crossings over the last few years. Just last week, the Secretary of Homeland Security had a troubling and confusing message to those seeking to cross our border illegally. He said, we're not saying don't come, we're saying don't come now. This will only encourage more illegal crossings at the southern border from those expecting easy access to our nation, overwhelming law enforcement and increasing the potential for human trafficking, child labor, and other criminal and fraudulent activity in border cities across the Southwest. We can't ignore the problem and hope it goes away. Instead of addressing this crisis, Speaker Pelosi has spent the last few weeks focused on a $1 trillion payout to progressives. I urge the Speaker and the Biden administration to get their heads out of the sand and work with us to address this crisis immediately.
Jody Arrington, West Texas. I want to thank our ranking member, John, all rhyme, no rhythm, Katko. The American people are well served to have this man at the helm. He is a former prosecutor. He understands what rule of law means to our great nation and what happens when you don't enforce the laws. You get chaos. And as a Texan, I'm telling you, our people are crying out for help. They're struggling, they're scared, and they're not getting any response, any leadership out of this president. And we are on the front lines in Texas and border states. Our people, your fellow Americans, are at ground zero in this unmitigated disaster. This is a self-inflicted crisis as a direct result of the Biden administration policies, the unilateral actions, the deluge of executive orders, as has been said, reinstating catch and release, rescinding border wall funding, and stay in Mexico policies, just to name a few. Policies have consequences. You show me a policy, and I'll show you the outcome, and the outcome of these policies have wreaked havoc along the border and in border communities. Double the apprehensions in January. CBP reported just yesterday over 100,000 apprehensions, illegal crossings that we caught in the month of February. Triple the number of migrant children being trafficked across the border by cartels. They're pawns, ladies and gentlemen. These cartels prey on these vulnerable people, and the abuses are atrocious. 1 in every 3 women are sexually assaulted. It's a humanitarian crisis of epic proportion. The message from this president, who fails to call it a crisis because he has the worst case of suspended reality I've ever seen, the message is clear. The safety and security of the American people is not his top priority. And the message to people who would come to our country and violate our laws and our sovereignty and jeopardize the safety and security of the American people will not be detained and deported. They will be released and rewarded. Free healthcare, free education, compliments of the taxpayers of the United States. And oh, by the way, with this latest Democrat bill, they'll get a pathway to citizenship, and we wonder why the border is burning. Last question, the most important question for all of you to ask the president, and I know it's the question on the hearts and minds of the American people. Why is it happening? Why is the president allowing this to happen? Well, I believe it's because, number one, he's obsessed with undoing everything, every policy that has the name Donald Trump on it, regardless of the merits of that policy. He's equally obsessed with acquiescing to every demand of the radical left. I yield back.
Good morning. I'm Debbie Lesko, Congresswoman from the great border state of Arizona. And I'm here to tell you, right from the mouths of Arizona law enforcement officers, that there is a crisis at the southern border. And the reason that I know that is because the Yuma mayor, the Yuma, Arizona sheriff, the Cochise County, Arizona sheriff, have said that mass amounts of illegal immigrants are flooding over the border. ICE facilities are overcrowded. Thousands of unaccompanied children, many of them not even tested for COVID, are being released into their communities. They have reached out to the Biden administration. Our Arizona Attorney General, who joined a lawsuit that the court has held up, has adjusted his lawsuit just yesterday because of the Biden policies on ICE. And quote, this is from Attorney General Brnovich from Arizona. If asked about the poorest policy choice I've ever seen in government, this would be a strong contender. Blindly releasing thousands of people, including convicted criminals, and those who may be spreading COVID-19 into our state is both unconscionable and a violation of federal law. This must be stopped now to avoid a dangerous humanitarian crisis for the immigrants and the people of Arizona. Last time I went down to Yuma, Arizona, the Yuma, Arizona sheriff showed me a date tree farm where he has been called, he and his officers, multiple times because immigrant women and girls are being raped. They're being raped by the cartels who don't give a damn about these people. All they care about the money. So the Biden's policies are incentivizing this. They're incentivizing these poor people to flood across our border, travel thousands of miles at the hands of the cartel. I would say the Biden administration is culpable of child abuse and abuse of these women and children, and it needs to be stopped. And with that, I introduce the great congressman from Texas, Tony Gonzalez.
America is beautiful, and what makes us beautiful? We are a nation of immigrants. We are also a nation of laws. Border security and legal immigration go hand in hand. My district is over 800 miles of Texas and Mexico border. I'm on the border every single week. And what I've seen is this administration's open border rhetoric has caused a crisis. And I urge this administration to listen to those that are on the border. Democrats and Republicans alike, listen to the crisis that has occurred. We're traveling to the border again early next week. I urge the Biden administration to take hold and focus on legal immigration, not illegal immigration. With that, I turn it over to Yvette Herald.
Thank you for being here. Just a quick question to get it in perspective. I see most of you have some kind of lanyard on your neck. Did you have to go through any kind of security to get here? I bet you did. So you're going to go through security to get into the Pelosi compound, and yet people are walking across the border just freely. It is a huge problem at the border crisis, and I'll bet most of you have had to have a COVID test before you could come in and do any kind of coverage at the inauguration or anything like that. Guess what? That's not happening at the border. And the reason we need to stand in support of the PAUSE Act is because we need the Biden administration to keep Title 42 in place so that we can protect the citizens of our nation. This has nothing to do with politics. The PAUSE Act is actually about protecting the health and safety of the American people. We're asking him, let our Border Patrol agents expel those coming into the nation illegally through Mexico or Canada on the border so that we can protect our seniors, our children, our communities. It is not fair that we have been in a mass situation, in lockdown, closed businesses. 2,000 businesses in my state will not recover because of COVID-19. Loved ones are dying alone. We're not educating our kids. And yet we think it's a good idea to somehow open the border and put not only the American people, but those making that trek across the country to get here in harm's way. It doesn't make sense. But what I can tell you is with the Biden border crisis, what this administration has done, and make no mistake, they have made the federal government the last link in the chain of human smuggling for these children. So let's do what is right for the people of America for change. Let's get our priorities set. Because let's not forget, we work for the people of America, not for the illegals, and not just for Nancy Pelosi and her policies. Let's protect Americans first. Thank you.
That concludes the speech. Thank you all very much for coming. And just remember, get the administration to call it a crisis, because that's what it is. Thank you very much, everybody.
When President Biden announced his plan to offer citizenship for 11 million undocumented immigrants, he might as well have put a welcome mat out for every person to come here illegally. Housecup has a message for him. This morning, watch live. We are done letting governments use this pandemic to play politics with our lives. Your heart is free. Have the courage to follow it.
I need you. I need every American to do their part. And that's not hyperbole. I need you. I need you to get vaccinated when it's your turn and when you can find an opportunity. And to help your family, your friends, your neighbors get vaccinated as well. Because here's the point. If we do all this, if we do our part, if we do this together, by July the 4th, there's a good chance you, your families and friends will be able to get together in your backyard or in your neighborhood and have a cookout and a barbecue and celebrate Independence Day. That doesn't mean large events with lots of people together, but it does mean small groups will be able to get together. After this long, hard year, that will make this Independence Day something truly special, where we not only mark our independence as a nation, but we begin to mark our independence from this virus. But to get there, we can't let our guard down. This fight is far from over. As I told the woman in Pennsylvania, I'll tell you the truth. On July 4th, with your loved ones, is the goal. But a lot can happen.
Robbie Hart 21, Jeremy Kunkel, C2KAMEL, Kenny Guido, Scar17. I feel that love and support so much. Thank you all. Bosch Charlie Lowell. That sounds dangerous. No. What are your thoughts on this quote made by George Lucas to Congress March 3, 1988?
All right. The phrase cancel culture has made its way into our cultural and political lexicon. I'm a big believer in defining terms and understanding exactly what is meant by words and phrases, so I think it's appropriate for us to sort of figure out what that phrase cancel culture means. Is it new, or is it something that's been around for a long time and we just renamed it? Who gets to decide who or what is canceled? It was the summer before I started the 9th grade when the movie Grease came out. You may remember that movie, Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta. So my mom decided she would take my 3 sisters and me to see the movie. And we made it about 30 minutes into the movie when my mom leaned over and said, "We're leaving. Get your sisters. We're leaving." Leaving? You gotta be kidding me. Olivia Newton-John hasn't even put on her black leather outfit yet. You cannot be serious. But my mom was serious. She was very serious. My entire school was in that movie theater that day. It was so embarrassing. I'm barely able to talk about it today. My mom grabbing her 4 children and walking out. My mom canceled the rest of that movie for me. And she was not the only parent I had who engaged in cultural cancellation. My 3 sisters and I could not watch Happy Days. We could not watch Gilligan's Island or Sesame Street. So you can forget about Dallas or Dynasty or Flamingo Road. Was that the cancel culture? Or was that my parents deciding they wanted to control what their children were exposed to? And once I got married, I actually came to long for my parents' rules on TV. They were nothing compared to my wife's rules. She can hear a bad word through 3 walls and a mute button. I had to check into a hotel to watch True Detective. And Game of Thrones? She still doesn't know I watched that. Well, I guess now she does. Is that the cancel culture? I think it's a lady wanting to fill her mind and spirit with good things, with positive things. If you don't like something on TV or in entertainment, you have the right not to watch it. The question is, do you have the right to make sure no one else can watch it either, or hear it, or see it, or read it? I think what frustrates many of us is the inconsistency with these new societal rules. A professional golfer loses a sponsorship for a word he uttered to himself. But if you flip the station to another show or another movie, you will hear people mock religion, you will hear God's name taken in vain, you will hear words that would get your tongue cut out in my mother's house, and there's no consequence. You take Jesus' name in vain and nothing happens. You utter another word and you lose your job. I think what people want is some sense of fairness and consistency. You know, the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. That relates to Congress, to government. It does not relate to how we interact with each other. We can set those rules too, but they must be fair and they must be evenly applied. Freedom is hard sometimes. Your freedoms may offend me, and vice versa. Freedom works best, I think, when it is tempered with grace, with understanding people make mistakes, with applying the same rules to your own words that you apply to other people's words. Our framers protected certain freedoms for us, but they were also very concerned with the right of those in the minority. They were concerned that the majority would silence or cancel, if you will, the minority. Freedom, grace, education, understanding. I think we could all benefit from the proper balance of those ideals. How we treat the minority matters because they may not be in the minority forever. Most of all, I hope we can apply the same standard of fairness to others that we want applied to us. Joining me now, former Congresswoman from the great state of Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard. Hey, Tulsi, how are you?
Aloha, my friend. It's good to talk to you as always.
Likewise. All right. I used to turn to you when we were serving together for guidance. Tell me what the cancel culture is and why we should be concerned with it.
Well, you rightly started this conversation talking about freedom. When you look at the foundation of our democracy, it is based on this ideal, this principle of freedom of speech, freedom for every single one of us to be able to share our ideas and debate them, to argue them, to agree or to disagree, to pick and choose in this marketplace of ideas those that we deem to be right or wrong, to be superior or inferior, and even for those ideas that may be misleading or dangerous, that in this free marketplace, we have the right to then defeat those ideas with superior ones. And others have the freedom to choose what they want to believe or not to believe or what they want to adhere to. So when you look at this question, what is cancel culture? Cancel culture is the opposite of this. It is exactly the opposite of this foundational principle of our democracy. It means that in a cancel culture, you have some people who believe that they are special, that they are superior, that they have the power to be able to shut down those who have ideas and views that are different, who may follow a path that they deem to be the wrong path and will therefore say, nope, we're going to place obstacles in front of you, we're going to silence certain voices so that only those who agree with us in the path that we deem to be right is the one that is before you to choose. And the issue with this, there's a few issues, but the main issue with this is when you look at our rights and freedoms, and our ability to debate them and respectfully come out the other end agreeing or disagreeing, as you and I have over the years, it's based on the fact that we are all children of God. And recognizing that, we then treat each other with respect and respect this freedom that we have. So let's look down the path and say, okay, well, where does this cancel culture lead us? You see the final expression of cancel culture in Islamist terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Who basically go and behead those who are they deem to be infidels or heretics in order to silence them, in order to protect others from being misled by those heretical ideas in the eyes of an ISIS or Al-Qaeda. And so when we look at cancel culture here at home, we see those efforts to cancel or silence those that they don't want the people to hear from, those who may offer a different idea than the one that those in power want people to see or to hear or to be exposed to. And so this is, when we look at the foundations of our democracy, this is the danger of where this path leads us unless we as individuals stand up against it. And that's the final point I want to make on this is, what can we do? Because I get asked this a lot. What can we do to stand up against this cancel culture, this fear-mongering, this bullying, that if you don't adhere to this path that those in power say is the right one, then you are at risk of losing your job. You are at risk of losing family or friends or being unpopular or losing likes on social media. This requires us to ask the question of ourselves, who are we trying to please? And this is something for me at a really young age. I recognize that life is short. Death can come at any time, and I was happiest and am happiest when trying to live my life to be pleasing to God, to my best friend. And so as I've gone through my life, and especially in politics, the media is coming at you with attacks, political opponents, social media, I have always found that peace and that strength in going within and knowing
You've
that
been great, Tulsi.
God
You
has
ain't afraid of
unconditional
nothing.
love for all of us.
Tulsi Gabbard. If this is your idea of equality, you are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity. I don't care that the mandates are lifted. I am still going to wear a mask and socially distance. Can anyone come up with a better visual to explain the Biden presidency than his dog attacking a federal law enforcement officer? Here are my thoughts. Watch and RT. You may not like it, you may not admit it, you may not say it out loud, but Tucker is 100 right. Not only did he kill tens of thousands of New Yorkers and try to cover up the insane decisions, but the Gropper-in-Chief, who is running NY, still refuses to leave. My take from my hit this week with Sean Hannity. There is no finer analogy for the Biden presidency than his dog biting a federal law enforcement officer. My thoughts below. Wash times. Lock him up. Look at the date. Some fake news polling going on IMHO. There's a 0 chance only 50 of Americans believe Biden is up to the task of being POTUS. That's just the 50 willing to say it loud. Hear me out. I'm just shocked he actually has legs. I really thought it was more of a Mr. Potato Head type of situation, with his feet attached directly to his ass. Day 51 of the Biden administration. Tax dollars spent 190,000,000,000,000 questions taken 0,000,000,000,000,000. AOC is upset about the compromises in the COVID relief bill, but when is she not upset about something? It's amazing to see so many governors across the US opening up their states. Opening back up for the good of the people is what America First is all about. Roy Cooper, North Carolina, is watching. I won't give a single inch on our Second Amendment rights. Retweet if you will. Stand with me. The Second Amendment protects against tyranny, so it makes sense that Democrats want to do away with it. USMC Oliver North is on fire tonight on Tucker Carlson, talking about our military voluntary service and loyalty. Typical liberal gaslighting. God protect our troops, okay? Pull them out of the Middle East. Biden, by July the 4th you'll get to see your family and friends. If you do this, then you can do that. Excuse me, we live in a free country. We can see our loved ones before July 4th, anytime before and anytime after. Second Amendment. I guess in Adam Kinzinger's world he doesn't need guns because he just goes around knifing Republicans in the back. My statement on his vote in favor of the Democrats' massive gun control legislation. Culturamani Lamau. Black Fispidin Lamau. Not me, no Syrie. I remember when lips were Yalmau. Jeremy 7001 Molly Dong Fast Lamau. Rattle Claw 1 Oversaturated Market. Good point. Women Foppery Lamau. I know that sounds like a jab, but I'm genuinely perplexed, trying to understand why someone would listen to a podcast hosted by lawyers. Black Fispidin. Vengeful Lilith Lamfau. Kayakisit girl I wouldn't know. Kayakisit girl Lamau. You hospicy no thanks. I can never listen to this song the same. This is what they took from me. Young Easterman same lol WTF was that shit about? Spectre of Jeff Uppers. If you think that fine I'll probably never convince you otherwise, but I want you to just fucking admit it already. I hate fucking bullshit and bullshitters. It's like nails on chalkboard to me. Cause if I see things the way all humans do, then there is no other solution, is there? If you think it's just in their nature, then just fucking say it already. And the only real way to solve our problems is to get rid of them. Get to the fucking point already. Stop bullshitting about which way you posture or virtue signal. Tell me what the fuck your solution is. If you don't think our problems have economic causes, then be real and tell us what you really think it is. Tell me you think it's blacks or whites or right-wingers or whoever. Tell me straight up. Stop pussyfooting. Tell me you think the only solution is to KXLL off the other side. Black Fispidin, I got to get you to here. You long stroke hate these fucking people. If you can tell yet, but I genuinely hate these elite freaks' guts. Funny how people talk about white privilege, justifying why underclass right-wingers are irredeemable when really, libs are economically privileged people. The real privilege, they're the ones who have no excuse for their inhumanity, while they postulate from their fancy dwellings. Had this Rexford blocked already, he must have been mad at me about something libtards, man. There's no hope in these people. Lol, yes, there's no economic cause to murder, it's psychological, and with right-wingers it's neither economic or psychological, it's the evil Jew magic. Just Wilford. Black Fispidin Lumfau. Signal intruder, you'd think. I'm joking, my predictions are accurate, because I actually unironically listen to the experts, I just don't believe them. Experts, stop stealing my tweets. HXLLXW6 sickos. Rightoids who side with the elite over their cultural enemy are as Rexforded as the leftists that do the same, obviously. Wignats posting else. General Groiper 1 lol door. General Groiper 1, you think all blacks are BLM activists, like me for instance? Halriach off based. General Groiper 1, well then the elites are cucking you good. General Groiper 1 lol, then you don't understand power. Maiden soul holly sheet lamau, this is what I've been talking about. Cast grasshopper, that's cool with me. Hufflepuff hunky lol, I deck WTF, that means no refunds, and the left collected it for them. It went to Democrats. When he'd 143766414. Also, they all repeat each other, saying the same thing over and over, and freak out if anyone deviates cult brain. Radlib echo chambers making the rounds, repeating wokeness religion is a dumb take, it's a basic ass take from years ago. Really, leftism is the religion, because I've never seen a cult so strongly refuse to change beliefs in the face of being proven wrong so many times. Men browsing AI think it's for this, while the elite consume as they please. Climate lockdowns for plebs. Anybody remember this? Brisby Sinclair, remember this? Even as a leftist, I was always skeptical why the biggest bougiest libs cared so much about climate change more than anything else. Now, after this lib pandemic climate lockdown proposals, the world is about to end every day for over a decade. Since I was a kid, I'm skeptical. Lol OFC. Climate libs, the world is about to end. No, we mean it this time. Lotus Point Thifid post, I dead ass don't even remember that. Lol wild. Howling Mutant Zero, I feel you. Lotta good at did you halal. Shuagay's wife Lamau. Jinx production for real. Colin Smith. Lotus Point Thifid post, swear I've been noticing how deliberate this is, more and more blatant. Prispaker Lafayette Republican, it'll probably be more regular, but less money every year, while cost of living goes up every year. Lafayette Republican, these are the first steps on a long road to cheap UBI, with social services cuts and mass unemployment. Tlamenken. Mersky 16 Christ. Lib Pandemic OFC. Mersky 16 Lul. Big Boy Bertol Mao. Women posting l's, the dudes who fed that psycho take L's as well on this. Culturamani women posting l's Lamfau. Tweakin Blues Midzirasher. Rowan Sit Lib Pandemic. Hero Dog. One positive political effect the pandemic had for Democrats was that whenever the media was talking about the coronavirus, they weren't talking about immigration. Liberals project views about immigration onto Hispanics that the data just doesn't support. They're hiding this from Biden, asking voters whether they lean toward Biden and Trump, and then emphasizing the Democratic position on immigration often caused Biden's share of support among Latino respondents to decline. White liberals are more left-wing than black and Hispanic Democrats on pretty much every issue: taxes, healthcare, policing, and even on racial issues, or various measures of racial resentment. Just following orders. I don't mean to get emotional, I just feel helpless, said one mother through tears. I can't believe what they are doing to everybody. I'm too afraid to speak too loudly. I feel cowardly. These people would bow down to Hitler. The cynical answer for their silence is 2 words: Ivy League. Their history class had a unit on Bayang and they felt compelled to say that they loved her music, even if they did not. I thought they aren't even entitled to their own musical preferences. One mother confided that her son said to her mom, "I just found out I'm a racist and I prefer white Europeans. Her child is mixed race." One teacher was asked to teach an anti-racist curriculum that included a pyramid of white supremacy. At the top was genocide, at the bottom was two sides to every story. This is an Antifa publication. The curriculum includes a sign called "Accomplices Not Allies," alongside a photograph of a burning police car. One Los Angeles mother tells me that her son was recently told by his friend, who is black, that he is inherently oppressed. She was incredulous. This kid is a multi-millionaire. They think they are suffering oppression at one of the poshest schools in the country. Woe betide the working class kid who arrives in college and uses Latino instead of Latinx. The Grace Church School in Manhattan, for example, offers a 12-page guide to inclusive language which discourages people from using the word parents. Folks is preferred from asking questions like, "What religion are you?" The parents realize that it's bizarre at best for a school like Harvard Westlake to hold forth constantly about social justice, as it drops more than $40 million on a new off-campus athletic complex. Their children are taught radical chic politics, which of course do not involve anything actually substantively radical, like redistributing the endowment. What does it say about the current state of that meritocracy, then, that it wants kids fluent in critical race theory and white fragility, even if such knowledge comes at the expense of Shakespeare? He was best known for his interview with Senator Edward M. Kennedy in 1979 when he asked a simple question: "Why do you want to be president?"